Hello, my Richies, and welcome back to another episode of the Make Life Rich Movement podcast. My name is Sara. I'm your host. And in today's episode, we are going to go over the top 5 morals that will change your life starting today. I've been on a journey, if you are new to this podcast, and on this journey, I have been just rewiring my brain to be more aligned with God, more aligned with Jesus and his teachings, and moving myself towards an experience in life that feels a lot more authentic to the one that I'd like to live rather than the one that I've been living. And I have to say, I started reading the Bible in January because of the Hallow app. It kind of just got me intrigued, and I started reading the actual Bible. And a few things were pretty evident from the beginning. The first was that, man, I realized people will never change. Human nature is as it is, it does as it does. And to see that 2,000 years ago, people were still behaving the same way that they are now in terms of violence, rage, hatred, misunderstandings, fear taking over, just like read the Old Testament, right? You can see so many reverberations of what we have happening literally today in 2025. And that saddened me really deeply, actually. I kind of fell into like a slight depression over it because it felt a little hopeless. And as someone that was very brand new to, the teachings of Christianity and trying to integrate them into my life, it kind of felt like, well, why bother if everyone is just going to continue being evil? And I began to realize that, like all things, if we all kind of stayed the way we were in preschool, this world would be such a better place. And it's because of the morals that we innately have within ourselves that have not been beaten out of us, made fun of, and removed from us by our own habits that we changed because of others. Just shrinking ourselves, not being able to believe and have faith in things because others who don't have faith or belief are kind of telling you it's not real. And it made me realize like there are so many ways in which we could really, truly, honestly make a massive impact in the world, especially America, if we started to implement these 5 morals that I've come across that were very helpful to me and helpful to remind myself about, that have always innately been in me, have always innately been the way that I wish to operate and wish to be, especially with others. And I hope that this episode helps you today to tap into that side of goodness within yourself that the world doesn't always celebrate and the world doesn't always help you strengthen. So if you find yourself in that place and you're on a journey as well of wanting to get more aligned with your purpose and find your communion with God and build and strengthen that relationship, then this episode is certainly going to help you do that. I would like to say, if you have enjoyed episodes of the Make Life Rich movement in the past, or if you're new here and you already like what I'm putting down, it would mean the world to me if you could share, like, or review, or leave a comment on Spotify or YouTube for this show. I do not do ads. I refuse to feed and line the pockets of billionaires just to try and get authentic listenership. I'm just looking for people like you and like me that want to make a difference in this world. They want to become better people. They want to grow closer to God, and they want to leave a lasting impact of goodness that will echo on for years. So if that fits your bill, please do share, like, rate, review, all the things all the people say. You know the drill. So let's jump right into it, shall we? If you just feel so tired of the chaos, the anger, the emptiness, if you look around America these days and you feel scared that we're heading in a really dark direction, you are not alone. I found myself in that place. Actually, the whole like drone debacle in New Jersey of November through December of 2024 was really triggering for me for so many different ways, but it ultimately brought me to Jesus and brought me to a space now where I am, growing deeper and deeper in my faith and doing different things to make that a reality. And I think, for millions of people, they're recognizing that the way that we've been taught to live is not working. And it's not working for us individually. It's not working for us as families. It's not working for us as a society. And anxiety, depression, hopelessness, anger. So many people feel that how do I say this? It isn't a failure on your part to be feeling this anger, this sadness, this depression, this hopelessness. It's the result of living on broken promises and living by broken principles that have replaced those that God gave us in the beginning to rely upon and to move through life with. And that was really big for me to recognize. We are living in a society that is dictated by billionaires, capitalistic ventures, and ultimately money. And oftentimes it is at the demise of others. And for that to even be something we've accepted as a society and we're able to sweep under the carpet, you can dang sure believe we've swept a ton more under there since. And for me, it's those things that we accept, those minor transgressions that have led us to where we are today. And my hope and my prayer is that these morals and these things that I'm looking to integrate into my life, and hopefully after this episode, you will be looking to integrate into your life, are going to help us to make this world, especially America right now, a better place. So, what can I promise you about today's episode? We're going to explore 5 simple morals from Jesus that can transform your life. They can heal your childhood wounds, and they can give you peace in these incredibly chaotic times. And I don't mean to laugh, but honestly, it's getting more ridiculous by the day. These aren't religious rules, but these are life principles that work whether you're deeply spiritual or just beginning to explore your faith. And we're going to look at how these morals can heal the wounded child within you and replace these destructive patterns with life-giving habits. So let's jump right in. First, your current life isn't working because of the emptiness epidemic. There is a cultural programming failure, and modern life has created chronic dissatisfaction within all of us. We've been taught that happiness comes from achievement, acquisitions, approval, but people who have all 3 still feel empty and anxious. And I know if you're a person living below the poverty line, which I have most of my life, it's an easy thing to say, oh, well, you can complain with this and that, and money and jobs and a good home and blah, blah, blah. I hear you. I see you. I feel you. Okay. I understand. An extra 100K a year would make such an immense change, not only my life, but in my family's. And I hear you. Okay. But we're not going to focus on the things of this world. We're not focusing on money. We're not focusing on your career path. We are focusing simply on just you, this meat sleeve, the soul that lives within it, and how do you have to interact with others in a way that's going to make the world a better place. I think the behaviors that protected us as children are the ones right now that are often preventing us from being able to experience love, joy, and authentic connection as an adult with others. And spiritual emptiness and our disconnection from the transcendent and our purpose creates more meaninglessness within our modern society. When life has no higher purpose than personal comforts and success, every setback feels catastrophic and every achievement feels hollow. And if you know what I'm talking about, leave a comment on this episode because I want to hear these moments for you. I want to know when these ahas are clicking because we have been fed spoonfuls and spoonfuls, truckfuls of lies at this point. There's also something to be said for the way in which humans are wired for connection with one another to something greater than themselves as well. And without that connection, even the best circumstances feel insufficient. There is a song that I really enjoy. I believe it's called Graves into Gardens. And it starts out, it's by Brandon. I believe his name is Lake. It starts out and he says, I searched the world and it couldn't heal me. Measures of grace and treasures of faith are never enough. Then you came along and put me back together, and every desire is now satisfied here in your love. That sentiment is that you can have the world, you can get all the things, you can achieve all the goals, but if inside when these things happen, you still feel hollow, you still feel empty, the treasures of the world may no longer be what you're looking for. The treasures of the world may have led you to a space to where you recognize, you know what, I've achieved a lot, but I'm still not liking who I am inside. I'm still not feeling my purpose. I'm still not reveling in a connection with a higher power, with God. And this can be the jumping point for your life. It is not a failure. It is a stepping stone to that next place in your life where you get to build upon these connections because of the morals that we're discussing in this episode today. There's a lot to be said about the state of America and its personal peace. And we find ourselves in an intense quagmire of cultural anxiety. And societal chaos reflects individual internal chaos that, it's really difficult to ignore the anger, the division, and the fear that's dominating, absolutely like clotheslining the American culture right now. And this external expression of the internal turmoil of just millions and millions of people that are living in America and what they're experiencing has gotten to a place to where we can no longer ignore it. We can no longer turn it down. We can no longer sweep it under the carpet. And when millions of people are spiritually empty and emotionally wounded, they create chaotic families, communities, and nations. If this doesn't explain what America is, what it was founded on, and what it has turned into, then I don't know. I really don't know. It's time to start searching for something different if you find yourself in that space of just absolute meaningless within your life. And I wonder, if there's ever been a moment where you thought that this emotional rock bottom you find yourself in could actually become the launching pad, the launching pad for the transformation that you've been so desperately seeking, both in your soul and in your heart and in your mind, that this is what's next for you. Let's talk a little bit about rock bottom. And I apologize for looking back and forth from my notes, but as a new Christian, I want to be really sure, really sure that I'm inserting as little of myself into this conversation as possible. And I am sticking to the notes. So if you're watching this on YouTube, I love looking at you, and I know you love looking at my pupils, but I'm giving you all I can here. And I want to be very, very mindful of just giving it to you straight from the word of Jesus. Rock bottom is often a place where people find themselves potentially becoming willing to try something completely different in their approach to living. And I know for me, the pain of staying the same finally became greater than the comfort that I could find in ignoring my fear of change and my abject unwillingness to just open the door to a new reality for myself. All right, so let's jump into these morals. Moral number 1, love your enemies. What does this mean? It means choosing compassion over retaliation, over judgment, even those that have hurt you. This doesn't mean becoming a doormat or accepting abuse. It means refusing to let other people's behavior control you or your emotional state or your spiritual connection with God. Loving your enemy starts with recognizing that hurt people hurt people. We have all heard this, right? But the person who wounded you was probably wounded within themselves and was never given or shown the kindness to give them the incident in their head to be able to pull from to say, I too can give this kindness. Learning to have compassion for those who have hurt you, including your parents, your caregivers, teachers, siblings, frees you from carrying the emotional baggage. And when we're looking to hear our inner child from these kinds of interactions where we feel very repelled from these people that are just at the very least giving us energy that we don't vibe with, we can find ourselves as, presenting in our adulthood as children that were hurt and kind of carrying that rage and consistently fighting these battles from childhood in our current relationships and in our current day-to-day life. There comes a moment of practical transformation when you forgive and love your enemies. And I want to talk a little bit about how this changes your daily life. For me, I would find myself in cyclical conversations of how I'm going to deal with this person the next time they say this or the next time they do that, or my coworker's a turd and the next time they come at me and say this, I'm going to say that. And holy moly, the amount of energy I was wasting both spiritually and mentally was insane. And instead of spending that mental energy on revenge fantasies like I was doing, or anger rehearsal for what you're going to say to them when they come, and I bet you're laughing because we are all guilty of this, you can redirect that energy toward building the life you actually want. And that starts step one by you leaving that person in the dust. And to do that, you got to forgive them and you got to love them. And it feels really hard to do. And it gets easier over time. And it could just be 1% of love for a second. And then you fall right back to like, but that's okay. We got to start somewhere. We got to build from somewhere. When you stop giving your enemies power over your mood, you stop giving them power over your day, and you stop giving them power over your decisions by choosing your response based on your values and your morals rather than their actions. So, moral number one, love your enemies. Moral number two, forgive as you have been forgiven. What does this mean? It means releasing resentment and extending grace to imperfect people within your life, or maybe just those you interact with randomly out in the world. Forgiveness isn't saying what happened was okay. It's choosing that you release the debt you believe someone owes you for their wrongdoing. And it starts with recognizing that you've made mistakes too, and that everyone needs grace for their failures and shortcomings. What's an easy one that we can throw out there that we've all done and then all been super pissed about when it happened to us? Pulling out on someone on a busy road and you've just waited long enough and maybe you have to pee and it's, almost time to pick up your kids at school. You got to pull out and you're going to make it and there won't be an accident, but it's going to cause the person you pulled out in front of to be a little shocked. They're going to have to slow down and they might have to brake quickly and they're going to go, what the heck? You couldn't have waited. And then, you're now in a space where you're going to get closer to picking up your kid. You get to go pee, all the things, and you're in a better space now. But the person behind you, you've now upset. If they're in a space where they're upsettable, which may not be you. Maybe you've worked to a place where you are unupsettable. It's really easy in the role reversal of that when it happens to you to be super pissed. But when you do it to someone else, it's okay. Come on, you'll be all right. Remember that when someone does something to you, because it starts with recognizing, again, that we've made those mistakes and extending the grace towards others to know that they're going to make mistakes as well, because we are not perfect, because we are not Jesus. Healing your inner child happens in forgiveness because of the breaking of generational curses of unforgiveness that you were taught by your parents and they were taught by their parents and so forth. Children who are hurt often become adults that have detailed records of others' wrongdoings, creating relationships based on scorekeeping rather than love. Forgiveness allows you to break free from the prison of resentment that keeps you connected to the past rather than the present and the possibilities in front of you. Now, a way to think about practical transformation within this particular moral is leaning into how you being able to forgive as you've been forgiven creates an emotional freedom for you. Forgiveness doesn't change what happened, of course, but it changes the way in which you have allowed power of past events to have control over your current emotional state. You're also going to discover that holding grudges was actually hurting you more than it was hurting the individual you were angry with. And forgiveness is often a gift that we are in actuality giving ourselves. Outside of those circumstances where you see someone really needing to receive forgiveness from someone else because of the gravity of what they've done, then they're probably receiving a fair amount of, we'll just say, grace from your forgiveness, maybe more than you do in forgiving them. But forgiveness, guys, it's a hard one. It's a really hard one. But like all of these morals that are going to be mentioned today in this episode, they are something that is going to not only free you, but help you to connect more with fellow man and help you to grow closer to God. On that note, let's take a quick Harbor Coffee sippy. Man. Moral number 3. Seek first to understand, then to be understood. What does this mean? Listening to understand rather than listening to defend or attack is a beautiful way you can literally pump the brakes on a conversation or a relationship going sideways because of anger, fear, resentment, lack of forgiveness, lack of love. And we've all been in this scenario, both in doing and in being the one that gets this done to them. Most people listen long enough to formulate their thoughts and their responses for judgment. And in seeking first to understand rather than to be understood, this moral is actually asking us to hear what others are experiencing. Often in a conversation where you may feel called or pulled to defend yourself, to pass judgment, to set this person straight, you are in a space where you are not really giving the other person and their experience the full stage to kind of come out and express themselves so that you can both be on an even playing field for what can be potentially moving forward, a coming together rather than a further pulling apart. There is a lot to be said about instead finding ways to get more curious about other people's perspectives instead of immediately jumping to a conclusion of whether they're right or wrong based on you and your perspectives and your experience. There is just so much goodness in this nugget of seeking first to understand, then to be understood. And as a person actively trying to stop interrupting people because I know this, I know that, blah, 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 and not even to be nasty, but just to be like, oh, it's okay, do this, do that. And it's like, okay, take a breath, girl, sit it on down, get off your hindquarters, or rather sit on your hindquarters and let them finish. So in aspects of healing our inner child with the seeking to first understand rather than to be understood, how does this exactly help us to break these defensive generational curses of negative communication patterns? Children from chaotic homes often learn to be hypervigilant about protecting themselves from threats and are quick to defend themselves, creating adults who cannot have peaceful conversations, or at the very least, they're very difficult, they're very fleeting. They have to be in a very safe place with another individual they deeply trust to not always be so defensive. Listening without defending also shows and allows you to finally feel heard in relationships because you're modeling the behavior you want to see. So, in you giving it to the person you're communicating with, you're showing them how you like to be spoken to. In doing so, we can hope that over time, if not immediately, they are able to mimic that and feed that back to you in a more communicative manner that allows for conversation to be going back and forth rather than for us to both be defending positions that the other one can never really understand because it comes from personal experience and perspective. Finally, the practical transformation. How does this revolutionize our relationships? I think most will say tears in relationships come from these conflicts that aren't about the surface issue, right? They're not about what we're often talking about. They're about people feeling unheard and undervalued. They're not being seen by you because maybe you have just steamrolled over seeing them by trying to defend yourself rather than stopping, pausing, listening to them, taking in what they're saying, observing their emotional state, their facial feet, like what's happening? What are they doing? What's the conversation about? Thinking with empathy for yourself. If I were in this position, how would I want someone to respond to me? How would I want to be treated in this conversation? When you generally seek to understand others, there naturally becomes a more interested cadence between the two of you because you are trying to understand each other, and it will ultimately create positive cycles instead of negative ones that are tearing apart and breaking down. Moral number 4, and I'm sure you've heard this one, but it's super important and really, really easy to forgive and forget. Do unto others whoa, it's such a special one. I messed it up. Back it up. Do unto others as you'd have oh my God. Do I cut this out? Do I leave it? I'm leaving it. Here we go again. These old words. Unto. It's not even an old word. Do unto others as you'd have them do unto you. Bang. What does this mean? We need to treat people the way we wish to be treated, regardless of how they treat you, okay? And this is a super difficult one. This is a super difficult one, especially for those people in your life that are just miserable, downtrodden, asleep at the wheel, have zero connection to God. There's not an ounce or a lick of faith or belief in them, but you love them and you have them in your life and you want to help them to become a more positive person. Then this, my friend, is your suffering and your penance for helping this person hopefully come to the light and be in a space where they are more able to just insert some of these morals for themselves. But I think in treating people the way you want to be treated, you're letting go the act of trying to match another person's energy, right? Because it's more about maintaining our own standards of energy that we wish to give unto others, like kindness, respect, peace, tranquility. Like it our behavior has to be independent of their behavior. We do not want to match their negative. We want to rise them up to our positive. I think it also is important to understand that being the person that you wish more people were instead of waiting for others to go first. It's like if you've ever been in like a group or like a book club or something, everyone's always so afraid to like be the first person to talk. And maybe you're a person that doesn't mind that and you're willing to feel a little uncomfortable and be a little vulnerable to help everyone else in the group open up. The same thing happens in a two-person conversation, y'all. And discovering that for me and connecting the dots of that for me was like, but transformation truly lies in the way in which we make ourselves vulnerable, in the way in which we open ourselves up. And leading with treating others as the way we'd like to be treated is a really beautiful way to ensure that at the very least, you are always treating others with kindness, love, and respect. And if you can just do those things alone, others will begin to notice that you are constantly treating them with this love, this honor, and this respect. And they are going to slowly but surely hopefully start to do that for you as well. How does this break the cycle of neglect and mistreatment, you wonder? Well, I'm here to tell you. Children who weren't treated well often learn to treat themselves and others poorly, which is going to perpetuate that negative emotional neglect and harshness that becomes the common way in which we all speak to each other, aka America in 2025. Practicing this moral teaches you how to treat others with the kindness you extend to others, healing internal self-criticism. And what is the practical transformation we can hope to expect from being in this moral in our daily life? This is a beautiful way to create the relationships you actually want. Instead of trying to get people to treat you better, you focus on becoming the kind person who naturally attracts healthy relationships and kind people. Let me say it again. Instead of trying to get people to treat you better, you focus on becoming the kind of person who naturally attracts healthy relationships. This was so huge for me, and it was such a surrender to God because I've struggled over the last decade, we'll say, of just coming in and out of growth and losing and gaining friends and finding myself in a space where I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to be kind. And there's going to be another kind person out there that gets pooped on all day by people that are just broken down and beat up and emotionally dead inside. And then they're going to see me and they're going to go, friend. And I'm going to say, friend. And then I'm going to have a friend who's like me. And I'll tell you what, God rewarded me early on and it gave me a ton of really cool ladies that were fantastic and kind and loving. And it has only gotten better in finding closer and closer friendships and in mending ones that I've had for what feels like lifetimes that were so important to me, so special to me. And, just being able to approach them from a different manner. You will learn to discover that giving the love you want to receive actually creates more loving relationships than demanding love does. And I think that's the beauty of, again, surrendering to just God's will, and whatever's going to happen is going to happen. But you and the control you have over your output can be kindness, love, humility, and peace towards others. Moral number 5, seek first the kingdom of God. And this, I think, might be the biggest one that America needs right now. But stick with me here if that was triggering to you because it feels a little too religious. Give me a second to unpack this puppy. So, what does this mean? Making spiritual growth and a divine connection your highest priority means organizing your life around eternal values of love, truth, justice, compassion, harmony, rather than temporary things like money, status, approval, likes, career elevation. It's about asking, what would love do? Or rather, what would Jesus do in difficult situations instead of what would protect me right now or what would benefit me right now? Now, how does this tie to America? We find ourselves in two main camps: the takers and the sit-backers. The sit-backers are people that are scared. They've been taught and shown over time that things don't work out for them, that they're not meant to do or be or accustom or grow to anything. And then there are the takers. And they may feel they're good people and they may, be kind and they may do good things, but ultimately they are only trying to acquire things on this world rather than working towards the goodness and the betterment just of the elevated energy of this planet, and ultimately the elevated energy that we have in our connection with God. So, how do we go about healing our inner child with this spiritual focus? This kind of spiritual focus of focusing on the kingdom of God over the world provides the security that childhood couldn't. Children need security and unconditional love. And when they don't get it from their parents, they spend their adulthood searching for it in people and circumstances that were never meant to provide it, nor ever will be able to provide it. And divine love provides the unconditional acceptance and security that your inner child has been seeking in relationships, achievements, and substances. I think there is a lot to be said, and I was certainly very, very guilty of this myself. I looked for love in alcohol. I looked for love in partying. I looked for love in hookup culture. I looked for love in achievements. I looked for love in like public relations and being a socialite. So disgusting to say. I looked for love in celebrity. I looked for love in status, and I looked for love in money. And all of these things left me broken, empty, and always right back at square one when they didn't give me what I wanted. It led me to this journey I'm currently on, and I can say with the utmost belief, faith, and security in this statement that divine love provides the unconditional acceptance and security that your inner child has been seeking in relationships your entire life. And, through no fault of our parents, unless they were very abusive or, purposefully hurting you physically or emotionally, our parents can only do for us what they had done to them until the moment that someone breaks that pattern and steps out. And it might not have been your parents. And maybe God called you to be the one to break these patterns so they wouldn't continue throughout your family line. Whether that be as an aunt, I don't have children. I don't plan on having children. And, I do try to break these generational curses in the ways that I interact with my niece and nephew, hoping to pass that on for them so they can see these things being modeled as well. What is the practical transformation that comes from seeking first the kingdom of God? Spirituality as a priority creates rather unshakable peace. And I can attest to this personally. When your security comes from your relationship with God, the unwavering, all-encompassing, omnipresent God, rather than your circumstances that are external, circumstances of the world, chaos can't steal your internal peace. It is literally an impenetrable force. And as someone that had a lot of anxiety prior to this journey of growing with God, I can say that there is a way and it is possible to stop being controlled by fear of loss, because your deepest needs are being met by someone who can't be taken away from you. That was really big for me. I really was in a space where I understood pretty deeply that in starting this transformation and in growing in this manner and all these morals that have come at me to help me be a better person, it is just the beginning. And these are just the beginning steps for spiritual seekers, those looking to get closer to God. And I want to encourage you to just start where you are. It doesn't have to be some insane proclamation. Although, if you are brand new to having a conversation with God, Jesus, it is really easy to just talk to him like a friend. Tell him what you're feeling inside. Tell him about your biggest fears. Tell him about what hurts you, who hurts you. Tell him about what you hope for yourself, what you wish for. Tell him about all the love you wish to receive from him. And my goodness, if you don't break down in tears and feel a warmth flood your chest that just makes everything melt away, I'll be surprised. I'll be real surprised. So how do we go about starting this? How do we start this transformation? One, I want you to pick the moral that feels most challenging to you, because all the rest will come very quickly after that. Once you've started this big, we'll call it digging of the foundation of, this transformation. You don't have to become a completely different person overnight. And this certainly is going to be a lifelong journey, but it is one that is absolutely worth it. Your inner child awareness is going to start to speak with you. If this is something you are also new on, that inner child journey, let's talk about how to recognize these trauma patterns that are going to help you keep turning towards these morals and ultimately towards God, rather than becoming overwhelmed and leading back to fear, which is from the other. Begin noticing when your adult reactions seem disappropriate to current circumstances. A freak out, like kids these days call it the crash out. That's often your wounded inner child responding to past pain in a similar experience that reminded them of the previous one. Approach your wounded parts with some compassion you'd show a hurt child. Curiosity instead of judgment, comfort instead of criticism. And if you like the idea of getting to know your inner child a little bit more, there are so many guided meditations that I have put up, at least a dozen. I'll tag some of them in the show notes on Spotify for you to be able to tap in and get to know yourself a little better. What is the promise of this change that I can guarantee? One, it's going to be gradual. It's a gradual transformation, and small changes in your moral practice are going to create those larger than life changes over time. These morals work like compounded interest. Small daily practices, 1% a day, is going to create that exponential transformation within yourself and your life over time. Sip break. You don't have to believe perfectly or practice perfectly. You just have to start and keep trying. So how can spiritual exploration begin simply? Whether it starts with prayer, meditation, reading, or just talking to God like a friend, like we just said, divine help is available for anyone who seeks it. You don't have to have all the answers or eliminate any doubts. Just be willing to explore whether there's something more to life than what you've been currently searching through and experiencing. I want to give you a teeny bit of encouragement, especially if you find yourself in a really what the Christians call a dry season, a season where nothing is working for you. Everything feels like it's against you. You don't hear God. You don't know if you are even meant for anything more than what you have. And I want to say there is hope for the weary, especially within the love of Jesus Christ, and especially when you start integrating these 5 morals into your daily life. You are not broken beyond repair. In fact, you are quite the opposite. Affirming that transformation is possible regardless of your past is one of the best ways you can start believing in God's power. No matter how damaged you feel, how many mistakes you've made, these morals can create new patterns and heal old wounds. And this comes from a person that has committed one of the ultimate sins and will forever be making repentance for it, and will forever, ever be trying to live a life here on earth that will bring kindness and goodness to the earth, to just try to make up for what I did. But I want you to know that the same principles that transformed lives 2,000 years ago from those same human conditioned ridden individuals that found God and found a better way still have the same power to transform lives today. I want to invite you to explore. I want to just gently call you to spiritual exploration, especially if you've made it this far in the episode and you are picking up what I'm putting down. I want to encourage you to really just honor how tired you are of the way things have been in your life, and maybe notice that you've got nothing to lose by taking on a new approach of any one of these 5 morals that we talked about in this episode. These morals are not about perfection or performance. They are quite literally the opposite. They're about finding peace and purpose and authentic connection with yourself and with God. And I, for one, cannot wait to hear how this transformation begins and is going for you. It means the world for me for you to share with me what journey you are on or going through. Please feel free to comment on Spotify or YouTube. You can always DM me. Feel free to email me even. It's on the show notes and on the website. It means absolutely so much to have your time and attention, my Richies. And as I grow and as this show grows, I want you to know that God has so much in store for you. It may feel really, really discouraging to not know your purpose. It may feel really discouraging to not have found your people. And it may feel really discouraging to not know who you are inside. But I want to let you know, especially if this episode interests you, that you are in the right place to start. And that start is by having a conversation with God. Maybe today, about your hopes, your dreams, what you want out of this life, and asking for his help on that journey. It means absolutely so much to me to have you here. I cannot wait to see you in our next episode. They're going to be a lot more frequent, a lot more on time, my Richies. I thank you for your grace on my journey. And as always, make life rich. God bless.